Hello, Internet. My name is the Golden Stalfos, and today I want to talk about Fairy Tale because it's a weird one. As far as anime goes, it's very, very shonen, like very by the books. Well, except for all of the Ichi content, that's a little bit abnormal, and you could even call it a trendsetter in that regard. I mean, not that there aren't plenty of shonen shows that do that, but they mostly do it to a lesser extent than Fairy Tale does. And yeah, yeah. Um, so that's a little bit awkward. Like, as someone who is an adult and understands that porn exists, I don't really get Ichi shows. I mean, when I was a kid, like 13 or whatever, I didn't really know how else to see that kind of content. It was, interesting. But, you know, now I like to separate my stories from a porn to a certain extent. So, you know, it just ends up feeling weird to watch. I mean, there's nothing necessarily wrong with it, and they do plenty of it on both sides. It's not like only the girls, but it is mostly the girls. Um, but regardless, I don't personally care for it that much. Um, eh, it's not like wrong to have, and I don't like hate it. I just feel like if you're gonna do something, don't do it halfway. You know, like if okay, if this author wants to do, if Hiro Mashima wants to make porn, like if he wanted to do hentai, he could, but he isn't. Right? He's making a shonen series. So like keep the almost kind of sort of maybe hentai stuff out of it and just do a spin-off. Like people would pay for that. It's fine, you know. There's nothing wrong with making that kind of content. It's just like weird when you halfway make that content and then halfway don't. And like I get it, the network and Shonen Jump is not really super into pornography, but so you have to scale back if you're going to be on their, you know, publication list. But like scale back a bit more, because it really feels like you were just pushing to the absolute limit of what is allowed, and it doesn't even work with the tone of the show, right? Because Fairy Tale is a comedic action romp, right? And so it feels weird when there's like almost a sex scene, you know? Because it's not a real sex scene. It's a character, accidentally loses their clothes and then gets upset at everyone for noticing, and then hijinks ensues. And like, that's not even funny. Like, haha, someone is naked. Like, how is that a joke? I mean, I just, it's not a joke. It doesn't have the format of a joke. There's no setup, no punchline, no nothing. You're just pointing and laughing. And the thing you're laughing at is the human body, which, you know, isn't even funny. Yeah, I mean, it's not even a malformed body where you could, like, you know, get some sort of sick, twisted enjoyment from that. But no, it's just a well sculpted person, and you're like, haha, you exist, haha. What are you doing? There are lots of manga and anime that have like almost a sex scene. The first things that really come to mind for that are like Baki and Berserk. And in Berserk, it's very uncomfortable because a lot of it is non-consensual, which is rough. It's not played for arousal though. It's played for horror, which is how it's supposed to be. Uh, but yeah, it's there. And in Baki, right? Like Baki hooks up with his girlfriend, um, in a totally normal, consensual way that teenagers might do. And it's taken seriously. Like they have a discussion about it. They try to work through their feelings. It takes them a long time to come to the decision that they're going to do it. There is a weird moment where his dad like breaks into the room and is like, "Yeah, you better fucking do it, guys. Oh yeah." And I'm like, "Get the fuck out of here, Yujiro. What the hell? What is wrong with you?" Um, but I mean, that's just who Yujiro is. He's a terrible person, and you're supposed to hate him. Uh, so, but so like, I don't have a problem with, stuff like that. Like when it's used for the story, or when it has like a purpose. If you're playing it seriously, playing it for the purpose it's supposed to play, like those are two very different scenarios. Obviously, those two shows. Um, and Baki hooking up with his girlfriend is supposed to be like a serious moment of growth for him as a person and for their relationship in general. And you know, it's cool, but Fairy Tail doesn't do it that way. Fairy Tail just has like every single fight scene. Lucy's clothes fall off, and she has to run around cupping her breasts with one hand because reasons. Um, and that's dumb. It's really dumb. So, yeah, that's my biggest problem with Fairy Tail. Besides the structure. Um, so early on in Fairy Tail, you don't notice the structural issues because it is very by the books, but it does something a little bit different with each arc. Um, and a lot of like the first four arcs are just spent establishing characters, right? Like you don't even get the full crew until like basically when they do the tuning exam section. Um, I've I think it was called the S Class Wizard Trial or something stupid like that. But it's just the tuning exams. Anyway, uh, you know, because like up until that point, you're getting new characters basically every arc, right? Like you get, you know, you, you start off with your core group, right? It's just Lucy and Natsu, and then after a few episodes, they introduce Gray, and then Urza is there, but she's not like with them; she's above them. Um, and a handful of other characters are introduced, but they just kind of hang out in the background. And then you have an arc that's just with them, and then you have the conflict with the other guild where Juvia and Gray come from. Not Gray. Fuck is his name? I forgot the name of the metal dude. I'll just call him Metallica. So Juvia and Metallica come uh, from that one guild full of the dickheads who have that big ass cannon and the walking castle. And so first they have to be villains and get beat down. Then they join the crew and become good guys. And you have an arc where they're together and you're fighting against new villains and you know and it kind of cycles like that where you introduce a new character. Sometimes, well, for the first couple arcs, all of the new characters are coming from slightly different places, but usually they're villains or reformed villains rather. Um, kind of, right? Like when Mystigan first shows up, you think, holy shit, he was like the bad guy from that arc. But it's not actually the same person. So there you go. Or when, Loxus first makes an appearance and he's all like, man, y'all are weak ass bitches. Play my game or die. And and then they beat him, and then he like I don't know what his deal was, like, because immediately after that he stops being the douche head bro jock and is just like kind of chill, like outsider character that shows up once in a while for a fight. And I don't know why he was initially framed as an antagonist. He's supposed to be part of the guild to begin with. It's dumb. Uh, so whatever. But anyway, it just kind of keeps going like that, where they introduce a character usually in an antagonistic way so that they can, show off how strong they are, and then they become good guys. And for a little while that works, right? Like at the very beginning, that's okay because the rate at which it happens is slow and you get enough time with the characters to see like their motivation and everything. And honestly, none of the flip flops really feel that crazy at first. Um, Although some of them are a little bit problematic. Like, for example, Metallica has this moment where he literally fucking crucifies one of the guild members. Um, and like he just fucking nails her to a tree with his giant ass metal rods. Um, and later on in the series, there are a couple. Um, yeah, it's a little bit ishy, iffy. Um, I mean, like if you ignore that initial interaction, they are cute together, right? Like he's the like big, strong, badass metal guy who, you know, has a soft side, and she's the bookish nerd who brings out his soft side and, kind of like, you know, disciplines him for pretending not to have it. Um, but but when you throw into context that he literally fucking nailed her to a tree, like, I don't know, man. I don't. Like, sure, redemption is a thing, but it's just. I don't know. So there's that. you know. But, like I said, for the first couple of arcs, you've got new characters and new villains and new places to go in the world and new shit happening. And it all feels exciting and fun and interesting. And the cracks don't really show immediately afterwards, but in retrospect, there was a pretty big drop in quality right around the time they went to the tuning exams. Um, so initially, they have this like, random enemy setup, right? So like one arc, they'll go to an island that's the home of a bunch of demons who think they're not demons, and they have to break the curse and all that shit. And also someone from Gray's past shows up. And then another arc, they go to this tower where some people from Urza's past are making trouble, and they have to stop them from, creating a super weapon that might destroy huge chunks of the planet, which would be bad. Um, you know, and then in another arc, right, like they have a contest with, well, not really a contest, but more of a war with a local guild because that guild was hired to uh, bring Lucy back to her rich ass father so that she can be, the heiress that she's supposed to be. But, the members of Fairy Tale want her to stay as one of them, so there's a war, right? Like, they don't have to fight for her, and it's not like a dark guild full of evil, it's just there's a conflict there. And they do kind of frame the other guild as being like mostly dickheads, but you know, they're not like straight up evil for the sake of it, you know. And for a while, they have this kind of format where like you never quite know what the bad guy is going to be, and it's always a little bit unique, you know. Uh, sure, there are team matchups, and there's usually someone who is like, you know, usually Natsu ends up fighting someone who's got fire powers, and Gray ends up fighting someone who has ice magic, and so forth. But it's not like always set in stone, and Urza's matchups tend to be like pretty random at first, um, because like Urza and Lucy, like they don't have one set power, so they can face off against a variety of enemies. Although Lucy does end up fighting puppet masters and other summoners more often than not. Um, so at first there's a bit of variety and some intrigue, but after a while, they get to a point where they fight a dark guild, and this dark guild has like a clear setup. There's a specific number of enemies, and they have a clear evil goal, and you have to take them all out, and the big bad needs to be fought head on to attain victory, and blah blah blah. And if they did this once, it would work fine. But then in the very next arc, they introduce another dark guild that's got the exact same setup and basically the same goal, and they get defeated in the same way. And then they do it again and again and again, pretty much every arc throughout the rest of the series. And it sucks. There are some breaks from that formula, like the arc where they go to an alternate dimension to help out Mystigan. That was a really fucking cool arc. And there's an anime-only filler arc right after that that features the characters we got to know in the alternate dimension, but they're versions from this world. So we get to see those characters like redone, kind of, and they're also fighting for, well, they're also a dark guild fighting for a specific end of the world purpose, and they get beaten down in a very similar fashion. But like there's actually some character moments. Like there's this really big moment when Urza uses this like hammer of time thing to stop the bad guy's plan, and it's like there's a lot of character development in that. And honestly, the first time I watched it, I didn't realize it was anime only, because there's so much character development and depth in that sequence. Like, how could you not? How could that be anime original? But it was. And then, there's the magic tournament where they're not like fighting an evil guild, but the Sabretooth Guild is kind of framed as evil. I mean, not like completely, but kinda. And in the end, they end up being mostly like friends with each other, so it's fine, I guess. Gajiel. Metallica's name is Gajiel. That's, I don't know why it just appeared to me in that moment in the middle of my sentence, but yeah, there you go. That's his name. Gajiel. It's a stupid ass name, but whatever. But throughout most of the story, there's a clear enemy group of dark mages that are hyped up as being even bigger and badder than the last group of dark mages. And they all have the same powers as the good guys. And you just get a bunch of same power matchups that are really fucking boring. And then they have like weird, stakes raising things that they do all the time. Like the guild constantly gets destroyed by the new bad guy, so that they can be like, oh hell no, we're fighting back now, blah blah. And I'm like, come on guys, you've done this before. Chill. Or when Urza gets kidnapped and they have that weird, like, overly sexual BDSM thing, and it's just like, why are you framing it like this? Like, she's supposed to be kidnapped and tortured, but you've got her tits hanging out and you're zooming in on them. Like, why? Why are you doing this? Um, and that's part of the problem with like the Ichi stuff in this series is just like it's kind of all over the place and it doesn't have a place in the narrative. And I would be totally fine if Mashima decided to make, just straight up porn. Like, that's fine. He can take his existing characters and do what he wants with them. I wouldn't care. Lots of people would be hyped for that. But, like, don't just weirdly put in sexy as fuck shots in scenes that are not supposed to be sexy. Like, why? Why is your camera positioned behind her ass and zooming in on it while she gets whipped? Like, that's not okay. Why in the animated version do you get to see her boobs jiggle as she gets whipped? Like, that, no. Stop it. Bad. Just no. Ugh. I actually can't even remember which studio does the animation, but I'm pretty sure it's Viz, actually, come to think of it. But, you know. Actually, let me double check that. No, it was A1 Pictures. That explains so much. Um, so, for anyone who doesn't know, A1 Pictures is like a subsidiary of Aniplex, and like it started out okay, but after the popularity of things like SAO, A1 Pictures became kind of this like revolving door studio where seasonal productions are made with the same exact assets and equipment over and over again, and very little effort is spent on production because they don't hire like full-time keyframe artists and stuff. They just hire people who know how to use their software and crank shit out. um, and so all of their productions look very very samey and don't have a whole lot of quality in the animation. Like the still shots look fine and all the character work looks good. You get those like nice digital lines and everything that you expect from modern anime, but it's not one of those CG studios. But it doesn't have the level of effort that you would expect from a more professional studio. Uh, and some of their works get uh, more effort than others. I think Fairy Tail, because it had a recurring, thing, got a little bit more effort put into it. But yeah, that makes sense, honestly. I never thought the production values of Fairy Tail were particularly high. Um, like I said, the still shots and character designs are fine, but that's about the best you can say about it. Um, I never thought the action shots were particularly great. Um, and I didn't have like any real complaints about them, but like, I'm also not the kind of person who goes through and tries to find the keyframes to see like how they compare and shit. And I know a lot of people who really, really care about animation do that kind of thing. So they might be more critical of this than I am, but whatever. But anyway, Fairy Tail is overall a pretty interesting show at first. There's lots of characters, and the characters have pretty unique personalities. I mean, not like you can't find any similar characters in shonen, but just like the characters have time to breathe and put their personality out into uh, you know like you can tell who they are and they get moments to show who they are. And it's not always big moments, right? Like there are big dramatic fight scenes with between Gray and his former rival, and you know. But there's also like the quiet, simple moments when people are hanging out at the guild and just like chit chatting, and you get to see how they are. And there are the little moments when they walk around outside and they bump into strangers, and you get to see how they interact with other people. You know, um, so like those character moments are probably the best part of the series, and they can really hit sometimes. But compared to a lot of other, character driven stories, they're few and far between. Um, you know, Fairy Tail kind of positions itself as a long running, continuous show with a big ensemble cast, similar to like Naruto or Bleach or whatever. And but it also tries to build like this collective family vibe, kind of like what you would get from One Piece, but without really taking the time to invest in the characters the way One Piece does. Um, like it does have more character moments than something like Naruto for sure, but but not enough more to make it like really good. I would say it's probably competing with Bleach in that regard, and Bleach is a much shorter show. um, so yeah, there's that. Um, the character moments can be good, but they're spread out too much, basically. Uh, and there's too many like generic moments in the series. And like I said, after a certain point, they find their groove and they just stick to it, and they don't really deviate from that whole, dark guild format for quite a while, basically until the series is over. um, and the end of the series is really just like not even an ending. like like they finally uncover the history of like the big bad dark wizard that's been like, you know, in the backdrop of all the evil guilds up till now. And it's not even that big of a deal. Like he just kind of like is there and then goes away. And then after that, they fight against this other big bad monster that's been sitting in the background for a while, but not like as an actual antagonist, but just as like a guy who is there and can be destructive if he feels like it. Um, you know, and so they fight against him and they win, of course, and then that's the end of the series, right? And it's just like, what? And then right after that, they just announce, oh, hey, now we're going on a century quest. That quest that's so big and dangerous it should have taken 100 years. Because the only one we knew about prior to now was Gildarts' quest to beat that guy we just beat. So, you know, let's go on a new one, I guess. And it just feels very like not an ending. I think it actually set up a spin-off series, but it already has so many spin-off series, and none of them are good. Like there's a spin-off series about Mabel. There's a spin-off series about fucking Gray's teacher, I think. So dumb. I hate them all. Um, and I don't think any of them have actually been animated either. But, whatever. So basically, it's a mess. It's a whole big mess. Um, but, like, I understand why people like Fairy Tail. I used to like it a lot. It doesn't get boring until, like, once they start repeating the same formula over and over again. And up until then, there's a lot of kind of interesting character moments. The whole magic system is really cool and you want to see it explored more. There's, this implied giant world full of monsters and magic and all kinds of stuff, and you just think, man, wouldn't it be so cool if we got to see all the cool shit that happens way out there, you know? And every once in a while, you get an episode like that where they go to a random location and meet a random, monster. Like they fight a yeti or a demon or whatever. Um, and it's fun. It's interesting, but I don't know. Eh, it doesn't carry through, I guess. Like it starts out strong, and there's a lot of fun moments, and you keep with it just because of those fun memories, but it doesn't really stay consistent all the way through, you know? I don't know. I think part of it is just that over time Mashima decided he was just going to make the show for the sake of the money because it was very profitable and popular, and he just wanted to make it keep going forever. And that's fine. Like a lot of manga artists have done that, and it's perfectly understandable, especially considering his previous series that did have a set end point wasn't anywhere near as popular. um, I mean, also wasn't as fan servicey, so maybe that's why he's got more fan service now. um, I mean, I think Rave Master is more well written and has better character moments and can more easily handle both serious and comedic moments because of its setting. But, you know, it's also very clearly not as popular. Um, and there are a lot of video essays out there talking about this stuff. I mean, like, one of the first videos I ever saw from, I believe it was Craftsdwarf. Hang on. Yeah, Craftsdwarf, an overly long tirade on Fairy Tail, which he actually recently decided to make like a I guess a rebuttal or response video to his own series. Um, so he's doing a series in response to his original series, which is peak YouTube. Just I love it. But like as much as he may criticize his own work there, he does make a lot of valid points about the series and its flaws. Um, you know, and to a lot of people, the flaws may stand out more than the good things. It's very by the book shonen. There's a lot of ichi. There's a lot of like tone deaf moments, uh, with the comedy and with the ichi stuff, and the the progression of villains eventually gets very repetitive, and the characters, end up being kind of one note. Like Natsu always uses a big ass fire blast that he gets the power up for by eating a bunch of other people's magic to win the fight. Like that's every fight, right? Um, and the first couple of times that happens, it can be kind of impressive, right? Like when they're on uh, the tower, right, with Urza's backstory people and not Mystigan. Um, when they're there, and it's like this big thing where this raw Ethereum, like raw magic power, shouldn't be possible for him to digest, but then he does, and it's like an overcoming the odds kind of moment, and it feels powerful. But the 10th time that he does that, then you're just like, it's kind of bullshit, isn't it? Like, and especially because of how he ends up doing it. Like he absorbs Loxus's power once, and then from then on he can like double up and be lightning fire whenever he needs to, and it's just like, okay, cool, I guess. But then why don't his flames have like unique properties the way the other flame mage in the guild does? Because like surely he would have copied that too, you know, or something. I don't know. It's just weird. Um, Also, it's kind of weird that everyone is limited to one kind of magic, right? Like and they try to make it unique. There's a lot of fun things going on, card magic and gun magic and book magic and all kinds of shit. But like, why does everybody get one? Why is it X-Men rules? I mean, it's magic for fuck's sake. Surely you can learn more than one. And some of them are really versatile, right? Uh, like Urza's armament magic allows her to equip tons of different armor that have their own magical abilities. And so she can basically fit into any scenario with a different, cool outfit change. And that's like narratively that's really cool because it makes her powerful and useful no matter what situation you put her in. And it lets the artist, have fun drawing cool new outfits and, do a magical girl ripoff and like it's got layers to it. It's nice. But most other characters don't get that, right? Like Gray can only make ice. That's it. And he can make it look however he wants. That makes his power a little bit unique because he can, form shapes and stuff. But then at the same time, like Natsu, who is framed as his rival slash superior, uh, can just do fire, and he doesn't shape it in any unique way. He just spits fire, right? Like he's just you know dropping mixtapes all over the place like it's no big deal, and that's his only ability, and he never gets any better. You know, um, and that's the main character. It's just weak sauce. Like and again to draw a comparison to Wraithmaster, like Gray clearly does take after Musica. Like it's so clear, right? Musica makes things out of silver, and Gray makes things out of ice. You know, but Natsu doesn't really take after Haru at all, right? Like Haru is a total badass by the end of the series, but like he starts small, and he has to build up his arsenal and he has to like reforge his sword and have like all of this shit happen, and he has to use the different powers of the different rave stones both in his sword and out of it, and like he's versatile and he tries to do a bunch of different things, and like sure he starts off with the explosion sword and he kind of favors that for a while, but like there's so much else he gets to do. you know um, and Natsu is always just I project fire and I eat magic, and then I when I eat magic I project fire, and that's it. That's all he can do. um, so it comes off as very boring and generic after a while. you know like at first the series can kind of stand not on its powers but on its characters, but over time they have less and less time for character moments and more big power action sequences, and the powers aren't that interesting. you know Probably the one with the most interesting power is Lucy, but her expansion is also pretty slow, and she's always pitted up against the least powerful enemy, and she almost always like loses or gets within an inch of losing before random chance lets her win, and it's just like lame. you know and again, there's also the recurring issue of Lucy just like losing all of her clothes in every fight. Other female characters experience this a little bit, but nowhere near as much as Lucy does. Like, it is constant. I mean, it's just all day, every day, and like I get it. I get why Mashima would want to do that because Lucy is like, damn girl. Like if ever there was waifu material, that's it. But like you should chill out with that a little bit, Mashima. Like just chill out a little bit with that, okay? Um, you know. So, yeah, I don't know. overall, I think One Piece is. I don't see. I keep saying that because like it's one of the major inspirations, and obviously, whenever I think about this show now, I think of that Craft War series where he endlessly compared the two. Um, so my bad. Overall, I think Fairy Tale is a decent series, right? Like it's got some good moments and some good action and some good character early on. But I don't think it should be as long as it is, and I don't think you should watch it all the way through. You know, there's a lot of good stuff on offer here, but there's also a lot of just generic, mediocre, time wasting stuff, And that's about all I can say on it, honestly. Like, it's fine, but it could be so much better. And honestly, like, I'd love to see what Mashima could do if he, turned his mind away from repetitive Ichi nonsense and just like went back to focusing on hardcore storytelling. Because like there are valid complaints to be made about Rave Master, and Kraftdorf made them, so you can watch his video about that. But like overall, I still think it was a very good story and like really stands out against its contemporaries. Um, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't really care for either of the anime adaptations because, well, the English dub decided to be all goofy all the time, and the original Japanese version decided to be all serious all the time, and neither of those interpretations is correct because it's clearly shifts from serious to comedic at various points, and you can't just ignore one side of that. Also, both versions decide to skip the intro and jump back to it later, which I don't know why anime do that. The intro is the way it is for a reason, and it's really fucking good, okay? Like, it's like One Piece, where they skip the original intro for 3 episodes and then go back to it. Like, no, no, no. The shit with Alvida is not anywhere near as interesting as the moment when, like the moment when Red Hair Shanks rescues Luffy and loses his arm, and it's like, dude, it's just an arm. Who cares? Like, that is the establishing moment of Luffy's life, of the series. You can't just put that off. It's so ridiculous. So, yeah, I don't know, but overall, I think it's good. And actually, for anyone who's a fan of Monster Hunter, Mashima actually did another series uh, about Monster Hunter in between. Well, I think it was in between these two bigger productions. Um, it was called Monster Hunter Orage, I think is how you pronounce it. It's Orage. So I don't know. Orage, maybe? I don't know. Um, but it's really cool and interesting. It's not very long, but it's like 2 or 3 volumes. But it's about this guy who wants to go hunt a big monster for reasons because it's Monster Hunter, and he basically ends up forming this little party with some other outcast hunters, and they have fun. It's nice, and you can really see how that guild structure kind of like is reminiscent of Fairy Tale. Like again, I don't remember if it came out before or after Fairy Tale started, but like you can see the influence there. Um, it's really nice and simple and fun, um, and it really it really shows what Mashima can do when he's not trying to pander to the fucking weirdos who need Ichi in every fucking chapter, you know. Um, I mean, there's still a little bit of it in there, but it's not excessive, and that's the difference, I think. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I just think it would be more interesting they uh, if they focus more on the character and the story and stuff. I think that's a large part of the reason why I like Wraithmaster more. I mean, like Lucy may be much more waifu material, but Ellie is a much more interesting character, and has so much cool shit going on. You know, the only character who remains basically exactly the same all the way through is Mystigan. I can't remember what he was called in the Wraithmaster version, but he has the same powers, and he gets you know, but he's a prince in both versions, and it's this whole thing, but he's basically the same. Um, you know, that's about it though. Gray is pretty similar to Musica, but everyone and of course Plu is transported directly, but Plu doesn't have a character. He's just a mascot, so whatever. Um, you know, I don't know. I don't know, man. By the way, did you know there's a shitty fighting game based on Wraithmaster for the GameCube, and it's kind of adorable. It's bad. Don't get me wrong, it's bad, but it's absolutely adorable how bad it is. It has so many characters in it, and it's just it's all Wraithmaster. And I'm like, how did they manage to do this? How is this show popular enough to get a video game I never heard of? And it's even available in English. What? Because I didn't even know about Wraithmaster until after it had disappeared off the face of the earth, and I was reading the manga from 20 years ago. So, well, okay, it wasn't that long ago, but still. Anyway, I'm amazed that exists, and it's cool. You should check it out. But it's not good. Don't get me wrong on that. It's bad, but you should play it anyway because it's hilarious. So yeah. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next life. Laters.
Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you have any things to say about it, leave those in the comment section. If you like the video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, share the video, tell your friends, start a cult, sacrifice your firstborn and paint their skull golden. I don't know, not that last bit. No human sacrifices. I'm legally liable. No, none of that shit. But, I got Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. I stream on Mondays. I also have a Patreon, but the obvious caveat with Patreon is you never donate to anyone unless you have money to burn. And if you have money to burn, then why not donate to a charity instead? I've got a few linked in my description at all times. I'm not affiliated with any of them, obviously, but yeah, I just thought they were cool. So, thanks for watching.